Have you ever wished that you can go ahead and attach a GameCube controller to your Nintendo Switch so you can play Super Smash Bros. In portable mode at your best? Well, if you haven't, somebody has. And that somebody is Nyxi. Nyxi has created the Nyxi Wizard controller, which is basically a GameCube controller that you can attach to your Switch like Joy-Cons and kind of gives you the benefit of a GameCube controller. But is it any good? Well, let's talk about that right now. So before I go ahead and start talking about the Nyxi Wizard, let's go ahead and give a little bit backstory on who Nyxi is. Nyxi is basically a small manufacturer that they go ahead and create a lot of accessories for the Nintendo Switch, and they also have a cool keyboard. The keyboard is also GameCube themed. I think it looks pretty awesome. I'm probably going to go ahead and pick this one up because it does look pretty neat, and what does make it stand out is it does have a dot matrix screen. So what I'm really visioning there is that I can go ahead and somehow get a little like 8-bit Mega Man on there, kind of maybe doing some animation or something like that. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, Nyxi also has a bunch of what you would call Joy-Con replacements. When it comes to the Joy-Cons, a lot of people don't like the Joy-Cons just because they're not really that ergonomic. So if you are playing for long periods of time, your hands do tend to get, well, really kind of like cramped. And that's kind of the issue I have with my Joy-Cons currently. So I've been trying to digging around and looking for a good Joy-Con replacement, where I landed on the Nyxi Wizard for kind of a couple reasons. Now, I do want to give a big shout out to FanXY, who you know from the Random Encounter podcast. He did lend me the Nyxi Wizard. I did not buy it myself, so I did get some time to test it out, and that was thanks to him, so huge shout out to FanXY. But let's go ahead and start talking about the Nyxi Wizard right now. The Nyxi Wizard is basically a GameCube controller that you can attach to the Nintendo Switch. It has all the buttons that you would be looking for, such as A, B, X, Y. It has ZL, ZR, L, and R, and of course 2 thumbsticks and a D-pad. You also have your home button and capture button, which you would expect to have on any Nintendo controller, as well as some extra setting buttons and some macro buttons on the back of the controller. Now, when it comes to the Wizard controller, I would say it's more ergonomically feeling of a Pro controller than the Joy-Cons. Of course, you do have the grip, which is kind of reminiscent to the GameCube controller, but not exactly it. There are some cool things when it comes to the buttons. The A, B, X, Y buttons do glow, which is pretty neat. They do have like a light there, and it's not too bright. The Z, L, and ZR buttons are very clicky though. I don't know if they're mechanical or anything like that, but I will say this, they're pretty clicky and pretty loud. Depending on if you sleep by yourself or not, it could get annoying to whoever else is in the room because, like I said, it's pretty loud. The controller comes with a middle piece where you can go ahead and dock the controllers into that piece. This allows you to go ahead and use it in TV mode. Basically, what it does is create a, I guess you can say, a wireless GameCube controller, so you can use it just on your TV or away from the Nintendo Switch. But you can also go ahead and remove it from that middle piece and dock it into your controllers to replace your Joy-Con. Now, when the Nyxi Wizard is attached to your Nintendo Switch, you can go ahead and put it on the dock and it will charge the Nyxi Wizard. The Nyxi Wizard also has 2 USB-C ports, one on each side of the Wizard controller, that would allow you to go ahead and manually charge it, which would technically mean you would technically have to have 2 separate USB-Cs and plug them into each side of the Nyxi Wizard, which is, I guess, kind of weird, but I don't know, I guess makes sense since they are technically 2 separate pieces, or rather like 2 Joy-Cons. But you can go ahead and, like I said, attach it to the Nintendo Switch, put it on the dock and charge it that way. Honestly, that's the way I used it and didn't really have an issue. I didn't have to go ahead and charge it wirelessly at all, or rather, I didn't have to go ahead and charge it through a wire or a USB-C cable at all. Now, when it comes to the thumbsticks, there's a really great benefit to the thumbsticks, and that is that they are Hall effect switches, or Hall effect sensors rather, which is a great thing. If you've never tested a Hall effect sensor thumbstick, you definitely need to go ahead and try a controller that has it. it is a game changer. The biggest benefit, of course, is that you shouldn't get drift. Of course, we have yet to really see, but technically speaking, drift shouldn't be an issue when it comes to these Hall effect sensors. But on the flip side, they also just feel really good. When you go ahead and use something that has Hall effect, there's just something about it that just seems a lot more, I don't know, like I guess you can say smoother versus something that doesn't have Hall effect switches or Hall effect sensors. And it's kind of cool because these Hall effect sensors are becoming more popular, but you're also starting to see them in keyboards as well. And I think it's a great technology, a technology that, as far as I know, goes way back to the Sega Dreamcast controller, which again prevents drift or anything like that. When it comes to the overall feel of the controller when it's connected to the Nintendo Switch in portable mode, I would say that it is very comfortable. Holding it for longer periods of time does not really become an issue. So if you are looking for this to be your main Joy-Con replacement, I will say it is pretty comfortable. But there is a flip side when it comes to that. That flip side is really the positions of the button. While I will say the button layout works well with GameCube games or anything to that nature, if you're trying to do other games that have precise input or anything like, let's say, I don't know, something on Nintendo Switch Online, I would say forget about it because the button layouts do not match. I was trying to play some Nintendo Switch Online games such as, Super Mario Bros. All-Stars, and it just doesn't work because A, B, X, and Y are just in different spots, and because of that, it was kind of hard to just do run and jumping. Or games like Donkey Kong, which also has you holding a button while pressing a different button to jump, they just don't align correctly. So what happens is when you are playing those games, unfortunately, it's almost impossible. You would have to play it almost like if it's some type of fight stick and have like your two fingers on top of the controller. And that is kind of a bad side, which makes it, for me, not a good replacement to the Joy-Cons. The other thing I want to mention is the D-pad. Where the D-pad is located, as it makes sense when it comes to like GameCube games once again, but if you're trying to mainly use the D-pad, in my opinion, it's just too far down, where it just makes it a little bit uncomfortable and just not my cup of tea. That could be a turn off. If so, basically, I guess when it comes to this controller, if you're really looking at using it for a full Joy-Con replacement and you're playing, like 2D games or Nintendo Switch Online games, it is not a good replacement because of those things. Because in my opinion, the two things you want the most is, of course, a great D-pad, which a lot of older games function correctly with that versus the thumbstick. The other thing is the button layout, where you do have to press multiple buttons at one time. Unfortunately, when it comes to the button layout here, it's just not a good fit. Now, when it comes to anything that was GameCube related, like I mentioned, such as Super Mario Sunshine or even Super Smash Bros., all that works perfectly fine. It feels like this controller was made for those games, and that's because, well, the GameCube controller was made for those games. So all those games work perfectly fine. If you're somebody who only uses or only plays Super Smash Bros., then I think this controller will be a great fit. There was another weird thing that happened to me. While I was charging the controllers on the Nintendo Switch and having them docked, they would randomly turn on their own for a little bit and then shut back off. I don't really know what it was doing and why it was doing that, but it did it quite often. As far as like it being off the dock, I did not see that issue at all, only when I have it docked. So if you are somebody that does have a dock, let's say in your bedroom, and you hate light, I would probably not go ahead and dock it in your room. For me, my dock is in a totally different room. So yeah, that's where I noticed the issue. I really noticed it while I was streaming. I kept looking down at my Switch and noticing that the A, B, X, Y buttons would just light up randomly and then shut back off. And like I said, I don't really know what that is and why it's doing that. So quick video edit. One thing that I did forget to mention when it comes to the Nyxi Wizard controller is the battery life on the Nintendo Switch. For me, it seemed to actually die a little bit faster even while in standby mode. Typically with the Joy-Cons, I can leave it in standby mode for quite some time without having to put it on the dock. I'm usually still pretty good. For example, I can have it for 2 days just sitting there, not on the dock, and I'll probably go down maybe by 20% or so, maybe a little bit more. But when it came to this, overnight, the next day, I was almost close to about 40%, and that's coming from around 90% or so when it comes to battery life. So that's actually quite a lot. Again, I don't know if it has to do with the controllers. Maybe they are waking up overnight and just, I don't know, doing something and then shutting back off. But that is one thing to really be concerned about. And the last thing I want to mention that's kind of still a negative is the way it attaches to your Nintendo Switch. When you go ahead and put it on the rails, I do not like that there's like rigid edges on the actual Nyxi Wizard sides. So when you go ahead and attach it, it does kind of rub off the metal or the edges. And this is with a Switch OLED. I don't know if it's any different with the normal Switch. I would assume not. But you can hear and feel it rubbing against the edges, and that to me worries me, because if it is rubbing against the metal plate that docks the Joy-Cons, I just wonder if that plastic piece that's there on the Nyxi Wizard would deteriorate over time, which would then make it almost pretty much unattachable when it comes to attaching it to the Nintendo Switch. That looks like it might wear over time from it constantly rubbing on and off. But then again, that really means it really depends on if you're using it all the time and if you are taking it off as much as possible. When it comes to the performance of the Nyxi Wizard, it pretty much feels how you would expect it, but slightly off. And I think the reason why it's off, it seems like there's a little bit more latency than any other controller I have tested. You see, while playing it away from the Nintendo Switch, or rather while playing it in dock mode, what happens is I felt that when I was pressing certain buttons, it wasn't registering, so I would have to go ahead and press again. I was playing Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, and I kind of got messed up multiple times because I would press the A button and it felt like it didn't register, and I would press it again, and next thing you know, it would input twice, which kind of messed me up in certain instances where I would go ahead and try to, let's say, go ahead and get a tank to come out or anything like that, and instead I was on the wrong side and it went in double press and stuff like that. Is kind of annoying. I noticed it quite a lot. Some of my jumps, for example, in like Mario Brothers was off because of this same reason. It just wasn't registering correctly. Now, I don't know if there's any interference or anything like that, but I will say this: I don't have that same issue with any other controller, like the 8-bit Do controller, the Switch Pro controller, or any of the like Power A controllers. They all act perfectly fine. It's only this controller. Now, when it is connected to the Nintendo Switch, that issue I don't have, so I think it has something to do with the Bluetooth radio that's in it. Maybe it's getting some type of interference, or maybe it's just not that great overall. But when attached to the Nintendo Switch, I didn't see that same issue. So now, would I recommend this as a good Joy-Con replacement? Probably not. Would I recommend this as a GameCube controller replacement? Definitely not. Would I recommend this as a controller overall? Maybe. I think it's a good showpiece, but as a controller overall, I don't know. I don't think it's that good for the price point. It is around $75 US, and honestly, you can get a lot better controllers for that price point. There's also some better Joy-Con replacement controllers out there that you can definitely find that are well worth it. So I don't know. When it comes to the Nyxi Wizard, it's a cool showcase. It's a good showpiece. I just don't think it's a great controller overall, which kind of sucks, because when it comes to playing games like Super Smash Bros., I feel that the GameCube controller overall is just the perfect controller when it comes to that game. When I do play in dock mode, I am always using my GameCube controller because to me it just fits right at home. I mean, there might be a little bit of bias there because of all the hours I spent playing Melee, and of course playing Brawl as well. I use the GameCube controller. Of course, going into the Wii U, I still continue to do that. So there's some biases there, but as far as replicating the feel of a GameCube controller, I feel that nobody can get that right. Any third-party GameCube controller I've ever tried just kind of sucks. They're not that great at all. But let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the Nyxi Wizard? Are you going to go ahead and pick it up? Are you going to go ahead and try it out? Do you already own one, and do you like it yourself? Like I said, for me, I don't think it's for me, but hey, it's a good showpiece. And I think it's kind of cool to have it on the shelf or something like that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It does really help out, as well as share the channel. That does help out a lot. Also, don't forget to go ahead and follow me over on Twitch. I do simultaneously stream Thursday and Friday, and then every Sunday now we have the podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern. We did switch that date from Saturday, so it is Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. I do have another controller video going up next week. I am still testing this controller, so I don't really want to show it off yet. I'm in the middle of testing it, and so far I'm really liking this. So if you are looking for a good Joy-Con replacement, then definitely stay tuned and subscribe and watch next week's video, because I really think you might like this controller I will show off. I am also still waiting for the Retroid Pocket Mini, and of course the AyaNeo Pocket Micro. The Pocket Micro has not shipped at all. I have no clue what's going on with AyaNeo when it comes to that. As far as the Retroid Pocket Mini, it did ship, it just hasn't really updated, so I have no clue when I'm gonna get that as well. I'm hoping by next week so I can get a video on that as well, so you can hear my impressions. Anyways, like I said, thanks for watching. My name is James. Catch you guys next time.